They cried over the person who shattered their life. And that was the part nobody knew how to forgive. They did not miss the lies. They did not miss the cheating. They did not miss the fear that lived in their chest every time that name lit up their phone. But when the night got quiet, when the world stopped talking, they missed the sound of them. They missed the old habit of hoping. They missed a version of themselves that still believed love could fix what pain had broken. That is the secret shame buried under so many breakups. Not just grief, not just heartbreak, but the ugly, confusing pull toward the very person who caused the wound. And if that has ever happened to you, hear this first. And hear it clearly. You are not broken in some weird, stupid way. You are not weak because you miss what hurt you. You are not sick in the soul because your heart reached for poison and called it home. You were trapped in a kind of confusion that feels like love when you are inside it. It can feel like your chest is hungry for the very hand that left marks there. It can feel like your mind knows the truth while your body still runs toward the old pattern. That split is real. That split is human. And that split is where the whole story begins. But the truth is even darker than simple heartbreak. The brain does not always bond to what is kind. Sometimes it bonds to what is intense. Sometimes it bonds to the highs, the drops, the waiting, the fear, the relief, and the tiny scraps of affection that show up after pain. That is why the missing can feel so strong. You are not only missing a person, you are missing a cycle. You are missing a chemical storm your body got used to calling love. By the time this video ends, you will understand exactly why that happens, what is actually called, and more importantly, how people find their way out of it without hating themselves for ever being inside it at all. Before the tears, there was a hope. Before the hope, there was a charm. Before the charm, there was a small moment when they thought, maybe this person actually sees me. That is how these stories often start. Not with cruelty, not with screaming, not with the obvious red flags everyone sees from the outside. They start with a smile that feels safe, a text that arrives at the perfect time, a hand that reaches out when you are already tired of being alone. And for a little while, it feels like relief. It feels like being chosen. It feels like the story finally turned in your favor. Then the first cut comes. Maybe it is a lie. Maybe it is a broken promise. Maybe it is disrespect dressed up as a joke. Maybe it is cheating hidden behind excuses and sweet words. The wound is not only the act itself. The wound is the confusion that follows. You ask, did that really happen? You ask, was I too sensitive? You ask, why did it still hurt when they said they loved me? You ask, why do I still want them after what they did? This is where trauma bond confusion begins to grow. The brain starts mixing danger with relief. It learns to scan for mood shifts, apologies, gifts, promises, and the next soft moment after the next hard one. The nervous system gets pulled into a game it never asked to play. Pain arrives, then relief arrives, then pain again, then a small kindness, then silence, then one more sweet message that makes you think the good version is back for good. That pattern is powerful. It is not love in the simple sense. It is conditioning. It is a body learning that hope is a reward after pain. It is the mind becoming loyal to the next high, because the next high feels like survival. The brain starts bonding to the rush of uncertainty, not the truth of the person. This isn't metaphor. It's documented psychology. Researchers describe this as intermittent reinforcement. When a reward is unpredictable, it actually strengthens the behavior of seeking it more than a reward that arrives reliably every time. Slot machines are built on this exact principle. So, in a much crueler way, are some relationships. The unpredictability isn't a side effect of the chaos. It's the reason the chaos works on the nervous system the way it does. That is why a person can know, deep down, that the relationship was hurting them and still feel pulled back by memory. The brain remembers the peak moments more loudly than the ordinary cruelty. It clings to the intense apology, the long night talk, the reconciliation after the fight, the one day they acted gentle, and it edits out the rest like a liar with a sharp pen. What changed everything was the moment they finally looked at the pattern instead of the promise. They stopped asking, why do I miss them? And they started asking, what exactly am I missing? That question is where the hidden wound starts to show itself. Because most of the time, the honest answer isn't the person at all. It's the relief that came after the fear they caused in the first place. It's a hope that was manufactured by the same hand that broke it. The darkest hour did not begin with the breakup. It began long before that, in the slow damage that went unnoticed because someone was too busy surviving it. By then, the body was already tired in a way sleep could not fix. Tense before the phone even rang. Stomach dropping at random noises. Checking a partner's mood like a weather forecast. Try and keep the peace, keep the love, keep the peace again, and in the end, losing themselves piece by piece. This is what people miss when they judge from the outside. They think the real pain starts when the relationship ends. But for many people, the deepest pain happens while the relationship is still alive. It is the pain of shrinking, the pain of walking on eggshells, the pain of being told your memory is wrong, your feelings are too much, your reaction is a problem, and your needs are a burden. When you live inside that kind of story long enough, your mind starts to split into pieces just to cope. One part says, leave. Another part says, maybe they can still become the person I hope for. Another part says, if I can just say the right thing, this pain will stop. Another part says, I do not want to lose the good moments, even if they were rare. That is why the final loss can feel so brutal. Because you are not only losing them, you are losing the dream you used to survive them. You are losing the future you kept building in your head while the present kept hurting you. You are losing the version of yourself that still believed love could be earned by endurance. And then the silence hits. No more calls to dread. No more messages that light up the room like a warning and a prayer at the same time. No more ugly hope. That silence should feel peaceful. Sometimes it does. But sometimes it feels like free fall. Because the nervous system has been trained to expect a spike. It has learned the rhythm of chaos. And when the chaos stops, the body mistakes calm for emptiness. That is the cruel trick. You leave the person, but your body still waits for the next drop. You miss the person because your system is still reaching for the pattern it knows best. This is also the stage where people are most vulnerable to going back. Not because the relationship was good, but because withdrawal feels unbearable, and going back is the fastest way to make withdrawal stop. It is the same shape as any other dependency. The relief of returning to the source isn't proof the source was safe. It's proof the body wants the discomfort to end by any route available. What this stretch reveals is not romance. It is withdrawal. It is the aching, sleepless, restless withdrawal of a nervous system that had been trained on emotional unpredictability for months or years. That truth hurts, but it also helps because once you can name a feeling accurately, you stop being ruled by it blindly. The shift did not happen all at once. It came in pieces. A quiet morning, a breath that felt a little deeper, a moment of laughter that, surprisingly, turned out to be real. That is how healing often works. Not like thunder, like dawn, slow enough that at first you are not sure the light is changing at all. It started with telling the truth without decorating it. He did not just make mistakes. He kept causing harm. She did not just get lost sometimes. She made me feel small, anxious, and replaceable. They did not just love badly. They made a home inside my nervous system and turned it into a battlefield. That language matters. Because if you call trauma-bond confusion stupid, you stay ashamed. If you call it weakness, you stay trapped in self-hate. But if you call it what it is, a survival pattern, then you can begin to change it. Learning to spot the lie inside the longing was the next step. Missing someone does not prove they were good for you. It only proves the bond was strong. And a strong bond is not always a safe bond. Sometimes the strongest chains are the ones that shine the brightest. There's also a harder truth worth saying out loud here. Many people who do this kind of harm are not cartoon villains twirling a mustache. Some are, but many sincerely believe their own good moments cancel out their bad ones. That doesn't make the harm less real. It just means the confusion you felt wasn't a personal failure to see through them. Manipulation doesn't always require a manipulator who knows they're doing it. Sometimes two wounded people build a pattern together, without either one fully understanding what they're doing. That distinction matters, but it does not change what you needed to do to protect yourself. Making room for the ignored parts of the self came next, the part that was angry, the part that was embarrassed, the part that wanted to call them, the part that still wondered if the damage had been caused by loving too hard. Instead of shoving those parts away, the work was to listen, and in that listening, something hard but freeing emerged. This was not a failure at love. This was surviving a confusing emotional trap. Those are not the same thing. The first one says something is wrong with your character. The second one says something happened to your body and mind that made love feel like danger dressed as comfort. What changed everything next was a decision to stop asking permission to heal, to stop waiting for an apology that might never fix anything, to stop treating the other person's version of the story as the only one that mattered. And little by little, the craving lost some of its power, not because the relationship was forgotten, not because it never mattered, but because of finally understanding the difference between attachment and love. Attachment can keep you reaching for what injured you. Love does not demand that you abandon yourself to prove it is real. That is the turning point. When the person stops being a shrine and starts being a lesson. When the pain stops being a mystery and starts becoming information. When the body slowly learns that calm is not emptiness. Calm is safety coming home. So if you are in the middle of this right now, not years past it, not safely on the other side, but right in it, here is something practical. Because understanding the pattern is not the same as knowing what to do with your hands and your hours today. The nervous system that got wired into chaos can be rewired into calm. That's not a slogan. It's how conditioning works in both directions. A few things tend to help consistently across the research on recovering from this kind of bond. First, structure replaces the chaos your body got used to. Not a rigid schedule, just predictability. Same wake time, a daily walk, a meal you actually sit down for. The nervous system that was trained on unpredictability starts to recalibrate around steadiness. Even boring steadiness, especially boring steadiness. Second, name the craving out loud instead of acting on it immediately. Not, I want them back, but my body is a withdrawal right now, and this feeling is temporary. That single reframe, from desire to withdrawal, has been shown to reduce the intensity of the urge, because you stop treating the craving as information about the relationship and start treating it as information about your nervous system. Third, limit contact with the source, including digital contact, checking their profile, rereading old messages, keeping the door cracked open just in case. Every one of those keeps the intermittent reinforcement loop alive. The brain doesn't need a real interaction to get a hit. A photo, a memory, a message thread can do it. Distance isn't punishment. It's what lets the loop go quiet. Fourth, find people who knew the full story, not just a highlight reel. Trauma bonds thrive in isolation because isolation lets the edited, romanticized memory run unchallenged. A friend who remembers the bad nights, not just the good ones, is doing real work just by existing in your life. And fifth, this one is slower, but it matters most. Practice tolerating discomfort without immediately reaching for relief. Every craving that passes without you acting on it teaches your nervous system a little more each time that you can survive the wave. That's the actual mechanism of healing, not forgetting. Tolerance. The wave gets smaller, not because a memory fades, but because your body stops being afraid of its own ache. None of this is fast. Anyone who tells you it is fast is selling you something. But it is real, it is documented, and it has worked for an enormous number of people who once felt exactly the way you might feel right now, listening to this. If what you're carrying feels heavier than ordinary heartbreak, if there was ongoing fear, threats, or harm involved, please know that trauma-informed therapists and domestic violence support organizations exist specifically for this, and reaching out is not an overreaction. It's the same kind of practical step as anything else in this list. The legacy of a wound is not only pain. It is the way you learn to see people after it. It is the way your standards rise or fall. It is the way your body remembers what danger feels like before your mind catches up. Nobody walks away from this unchanged. Some scars stay as warnings. Some scars become wisdom. Some scars become the reason a person stops begging for crumbs and starts asking for real love. And this is where the story becomes bigger than one breakup. Because what happened in this story is not rare. It happens in apartments, text threads, waiting rooms, bedrooms, driveways, and kitchens all over the world. It happens to people who look strong. It happens to people who look smart. It happens to people who swore they would never let this happen to them. That is why shame has to leave the room. Shame keeps people trapped. Shame says, if I admit I miss them, I must still want them. Shame says, if I feel pulled back, I must be broken. Shame says, everybody else would have been stronger. No, the truth is more human than that. The truth is that the nervous system can mistake familiar pain for belonging. The truth is that the brain can chase the chemistry of highs and lows even while the heart wants peace. The truth is that leaving can be the bravest thing a person ever does and still leave them aching for a long time afterward. If you are living this right now, the goal is not to shame the missing. The goal is to understand it. To notice when your mind romanticizes the best 5 minutes and deletes the worst 5 months. To notice when loneliness starts wearing the costume of destiny. To notice when you are calling a wound a soulmate because the pain feels intimate. That awareness does not make the ache vanish overnight, but it changes the meaning of the ache. It stops being proof that you should go back. It becomes proof that you were attached, hurt, and trying to survive. And survival can be unlearned, one honest day at a time. So here's the real question. If someone hurts you badly and still leave you craving them, does that reveal something broken in your heart? Or does it reveal how powerful the bond was and how dangerous the pattern became? And if the person who hurt you also knew exactly how to pull you back with just enough sweetness, was that love, manipulation, or something even harder to name? Tell the truth in the comments. Was this person simply careless with love, or were they something colder than that? And when you hear stories like this one, do you think the real problem is the character of the person who stayed, or the kind of world that teaches people to confuse pain with devotion? If this video named something you've never had words for, you're not the only one. That's exactly why this story gets told.